Thank you for joining us. I'm Allison Haunss, and this is the Working Woman Report. It has been a difficult, scary, and frankly painful time for so many New Yorkers. After witnessing the senseless and appalling killing of George Floyd, people of all races, religions, and gender took to the streets to voice their collective outrage. But not all of the protests were peaceful. While we certainly don't have the answers to correcting abuses of power and privilege rooted in systemic racism, we are willing to listen, really listen, and use our platform to help begin a conversation and dialogue about where we go from here. At the Working Woman Report, we can do that by highlighting and featuring the experiences of small minority women-owned businesses. We are here to listen and share firsthand what they're going through in this moment in time. We hope this can begin a truthful conversation so that we can get on a path to healing. Well, many of the female entrepreneurs we will introduce you to today were already reeling from the effects of the COVID-19 shutdown. Before the protests, they were first bearing the burden of a lockdown that essentially closed business overnight. The struggle to survive the quarantine and then what happened in the days after George Floyd's death have been a tremendous challenge, to say the least. But it is a challenge that these phenomenal women are fearlessly taking on with thought, strength, dignity, and style. I'd first like to introduce you to Miriam Milord, owner and operator of BcakeNY, a Prospect Heights bakery that has created one-of-a-kind cakes for the likes of Cardi B, Rihanna, Jay-Z, U2, even Diddy. Her cakes are truly spectacular works of art. And while we do talk business, Miriam first described to me what the past 2 weeks have been like for her personally, starting off with the experience of filling orders while protesters marched right past her storefront.
So it was actually very inspiring and peaceful, and people were marching and sort of, waving to us and screaming, "Yay! Black-owned business, Black-owned bakery," and it was great. I think it was exactly how protests are intended to be.
What has the past week been like for you?
So in the past week, we had definitely a few more changes. I feel like for the last few weeks, months, we've been used to, new regulations every day and new, changes to our schedule and our entire business, actually. So this week was kind of, like a similar week. We had, there was a curfew now, so we, had to adjust to those new rules for, our employees. And then, so, just from a logistics standpoint. And then, of course, as a, Black-owned business and Black operated business, most of our employees are of color and are, obviously also emotionally, very touched by the subject and, personally involved. So it's definitely been sort of a roller coaster of, emotion and worry and, trying to find that balance of saying, okay, I'm, obviously all for these protests and all for this cause, but then do I have to worry about, the safety of my store and my employees at some point? But we really ended up just trusting Brooklyn and saying, hey, our store is loved and we're just going to trust that everyone, will keep us safe as well.
What is your message to the people who've been violent and have destroyed stores?
I mean, so I think, yes, the way it has been, obviously we need change. We need to have, attention brought to the issue. And the question has always been, how do we protest? It's have been, instances where people were saying, silent kneeling is disrespectful. You can't do it like this, but you can't do it like this either. So then at some point, I think people were like, so what is the right way? What is acceptable? And so I think one issue is when outside parties enter protests, people that are out to destroy and out to break and not there for the actual cause, that's, a huge problem. And it, obviously puts everyone else in a bad light. The protests themselves, I think, have shown a lot of, actual brutality that we are protesting against also. People have been, unnecessarily, their masks pulled down, sprayed in the face, camera people pushed, and, just things that don't need to happen are just horrible. And again, they're caught on tape. So I would say this was necessary. I mean, we are at a point where everyone is talking about it, and our inbox is, filled with people, like you, that are asking, what is your opinion? What can we do to support a Black business? What can we do now? Where is, how can we learn, educate, change? And so this was very needed, and even sort of the controversy of it was needed. But obviously I don't condone, breaking small businesses and stealing. But the overall controversy of this was needed to finally say, hey, hello, pay attention to what's happening here. This is not new just because now it's being caught on camera more often. This has been happening. So it's really time to change. And if, this is how it has to be, that finally people are paying attention, then it worked.
How do we support the Black community and businesses, and how do we change?
Right. So, I mean, obviously it's not, a simple answer, but I mean, you can start by just communicating and talking about it and asking questions and learning and understanding, like, why is it not okay to say all lives matter? Although obviously all lives matter, but we need to figure out how to have that communication and get to the point where that is the reality, like until like all minority lives matter, until Black lives matter, it's all lives don't, so how do we get to that point? And, I'm always about educating and talking to people about this. And, small Black owned businesses, you can easily support them. You can share their posts, like their pages. So that's a way to support even without spending any money. So, and then of course, buy products, go, order food from Black restaurants, just, support the community. And if, you can't do that, then when you hear someone say something that is, racist or inappropriate, even at your own dinner table, say something, explain, talk, ask questions. I think that, everyone can afford those changes.
Well, I really appreciate those concrete steps, because those are things that people can actually do. And
they're small steps.
They're small steps. And I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today.
Thanks so much for highlighting and supporting. I think this is very important. Just representation and, being featured. I think those things are just, spreading the message, and that's what we need.
Absolutely. We just want to have a conversation. We just want to talk. And I think everyone wants to understand and figure out how we go forward and heal from here.
Right. And change.
Yeah, and change. Thank you.
And if you'd like more information on BCake New York, simply head to their website. That's bcakenewyork.com. All of the extraordinary creations are baked on site. Now, there are gluten-free and vegan options for those of you with dietary needs, and they do make deliveries in the tri-state area. Plus, they ship out of state if you want to send someone far away a special creation. Our next guest has a really unique perspective on race relations, criminal justice, and small business. Charlane Brown Wyands is a 26-year veteran of the New York City Police Department. She is also an attorney as well as an entrepreneur as the owner of Legalnista, a company focused on providing legal and business advice and coaching to small businesses. I sat down with Charlane this week to talk and to listen.
And Charlane, you are former NYPD. You are also an attorney and a small business owner. you wear many hats and have worn many hats. Where are we right now?
Wow, that's a very good and interesting question. We have definitely been on a number of roller coaster rides in the past couple of months. The nation is coming off of the COVID pandemic, still not certain if we're in the clear. Most cities are beginning to open up. I am located in New York, and we still haven't opened up. So businesses are still trying to figure out how to open and how to properly launch. And in the midst of all of this, we are now experiencing outrage and protests that have impacted businesses. Personally, some of the protesters or people alleged to have been protesters have damaged business. So people are hurting not only personally, professionally, and still working on maintaining their health.
As a former police officer, when you're hearing talk today about defund the police, what's your thoughts, your feedback, your opinion?
So defunding the police is certainly one of the recommendations that is being tossed around to address police reform. And it's challenging. We know right now that everyone is looking for additional resources, but to defund departments, especially when there are additional calls for training and culture changes, might not be the best recommendation, because the money could be reallocated to assist in other initiatives that would be more beneficial to help some of the accountability and reform measures that are needed in policing in the nation.
So, I mean, what is the solution? I know that's a broad question, but when you see what's happening on the streets of not only New York City, but so many major cities, how do we start to heal what's happening?
That's a great question. I think we're beginning to see the signs of healing, but because there has been such distrust, and because the wound that has been uncovered has been so severe, I think people aren't ready to be cautiously optimistic yet. But to answer your question, I think one of the first things is to really address culture. Many corporate institutions have D&I, diversity professionals, embedded within their companies, and they have taken on issues of culture internally. Police departments have not. A few have. I think in California, there's one or two departments that are experimenting with having those type of departments. But I think one of the first critical things that has to happen is that police departments have to start addressing the culture. Laws by themselves can help enforce and shape behavior, but you need that internal culture change that has to happen before people can adopt and embrace those changes. It's great to see a chief take a knee, someone at the top taking the knee. That's a start, because people look to cues to leaders to start. But we have to have that change from the top and the bottom and the side, and that deals with culture.
So tell me a little bit about your business, your day-to-day business, because we're definitely a program about supporting women in business.
Certainly would love to share that. So when I retired, I was sort of reimagining myself in my second career. I always had a passion for helping small businesses. While I was a police officer, I went to law school and I became an attorney and decided to expand my law practice. So I have a law practice and I'm also in the real estate space. But I became very passionate about helping small business owners, and particularly small women businesses. And many small businesses lack the resources, sufficient capital, access to capital to get started. Many small businesses fall into the trap of not knowing how to move or develop, because you want to run your business, but then there's the compliance side of your business. There's the marketing, there's the social media, there's the proper legal structure and entity. So I decided to devote a good portion of my practice to working with small businesses, help develop and grow. And so I've expanded that because smaller businesses need additional help and support and resources. And with that, I launched my company called Legalista. And it is the goal of Legalista to assist small businesses by providing appropriate legal forms, business formation services, and business coaching.
How can you calm residents here and business owners here that there is hope for brighter days?
New Yorkers are resilient. We're resilient, and we've been through a lot. We've been through September 11th. We've been through Hurricane Sandy, and we will make it through this. And I'm a tried and true New Yorker, and I always believe in New York. And hopefully there'll be some lasting change and reform. There are some people in place that are being thoughtful now, and this is really opening a broader conversation about how businesses can get involved and assist in the fight for social justice. So that being said, everyone has a part and everyone has a role. And I think there will be a brighter side, and New York will survive and come back and be better than ever. And New York will reinvent itself.
I think so too. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and your absolutely unique perspective. It's been so helpful and interesting.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
If you'd like more information on Legalista, you can contact Charlane directly on Instagram, and that handle is @Legalista. Coming up next, we meet Kalima DeSuze, the owner of Cafe con Libros, a feminist bookstore and coffee shop in Crown Heights. She shares her thoughts on what's happened over the past few months and where we go from here.
Where high values drive high demand. Where getting ahead comes from giving back. Where the education earns national recognition. Where? Here at Malloy College. Money Magazine's #1 value all-star in the nation.
I don't look any different than you, but I have type 1 diabetes.
You can't outgrow type 1 diabetes.
It's not caused by your diet. It's not caused by anything you did.
It's kind of hard to live with it.
It's not easy. I do need to check my sugar a lot, my levels.
If you see someone with an insulin pump or pricking their finger and you want to know more about T1D, just ask them.
T1D looks like me.
T1D looks like me.
T1D looks like me.
Kalima DeSuze is the owner of Cafe con Libros, a feminist bookstore and coffee shop in Crown Heights that has a mission of creating a community space where everyone is affirmed and celebrated. But that space was shuttered when COVID-19 hit. Kalima sat down with us this week to share her perspective on what has taken place over the past few months and what she hopes for the future.
So, Kalima, tell us a little bit about your bookstore.
Yeah. So Cafe con Libros is an independent bookstore in Brooklyn. It is the only feminist bookstore in Brooklyn. And we sell a majority of feminist books. Well, actually, 99% of our books are written by, for, and about women and girls.
Why is it so important for you to have a feminist bookstore?
Well, I think that it's important for us to have spaces that are completely dedicated to women and the stories of women across the global spectrum. We have a lot of spaces that says like this is a woman's space, even in certain professions where women dominate the profession. Oftentimes, men will be in the space and hold more space, take up more space, and have more power in those spaces. And for me, Cafe con Libros is completely dedicated to those stories, and I think it's important for young girls to feel supported, to feel recognized, and to feel empowered and emboldened when they walk into a space that's all about them.
That's amazing. So what happened when COVID-19 hit?
Yeah, so when COVID-19 hit, we decided to close. We are a cafe and a bookstore, so we didn't necessarily have to close. However, I have a 2-year-old son, and we live in the house with my mom, and she's 72. So we decided that the best thing for our family was to close our bookstore and move our everything online.
What has that been like for you and for your customers?
It's been interesting. On some levels, it's been hard because it's a completely different business to sell books and coffee online. A lot of the bookstore is about building community. Your community comes in. It's about seeing one another all the time. It's about talking and catching up. And we don't have that anymore because it's completely online. So it's been challenging. On the other hand, it's been invigorating because I've learned so much about myself. I've learned so much about what it means to move your business online. I've really flexed and been flexible and been very able to adjust to the times in a way that I didn't know that I had the capacity to do. One of the areas that I hate the most, I'm 40 years old. I could care less about social media. I friggin' hate Instagram. I hate what it stands for. I hate what it's doing to culture. But I've had to sort of reshape and heal my relationship almost with social media.
Oh, I get it.
This is an online platform that can really help us to grow. And so I've really began to explore different apps and ways to help me manage my social media platform. And that within itself, the fact that I'm able to feel more comfortable and confident doing that for me is amazing because I've actually grown in this time.
That's wonderful. So obviously the past week has been so turbulent around the world and specifically here in New York.
Yes.
What are your thoughts and feelings on what's happened?
Yeah, good question. I think, it's really complicated. I think that, for me, I'm a mother of a Black child. I am the wife to a Black man, and it's hard. It's hard to be in this moment right now. It's hard to sort of manage all my feelings, manage my anxiety around COVID, leave the house and see people not wearing a mask. And how do I protect myself? How do I protect my son from COVID? How do I protect myself, my son and my family from police violence? One of the things that I've been contending with is this idea that social status, me having advanced degrees, owning a business, having a profession, a career is going to protect me. And I'm reminded over and over again that none of that are protective factors, that because we are Black, it does not matter how much money we make or how much we've succeeded. We are still Black people in a country that does not value our lives or our bodies. And I guess it's important to continuously be reminded of that so that we can move accordingly. But it's also very, very sad, and it makes me angry. As you can see, I can't even bring the words up, that is the way in which I have to live my life.
So what can be done to make changes?
Oh, there's so much that has to be done, can be done. We definitely need to start thinking about legislation, policies, but I think more fundamentally that America needs to reckon with its history of racial bias, racial prejudice, racial inequality, and inequity. We need to have an honest conversation about the legacy of slavery in this country, and not that it's a conversation like you are a bad person or you're a bad person or you're racist and everybody gets into their feelings. But we talk about the institutionalized racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia that is operating consistently in our country, that's informing our politics, informing our policies, and actually getting certain types of people in office. We need to have that conversation before we can even begin to think about anything else. We have to face the truth. I think as James Baldwin said, everything that we face, anything that we decide to look at and face can be remedied. But if we don't decide to face it, we will never be able to fix it. I mean, those are not his exact words, but that is the sentiment that he's saying. We need to face it if we are ever going to fix it.
Thank you so much for joining us today and giving your perspective on all of this and your thoughts. It's really been eye-opening, and I sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for making the time. I really appreciate this.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
And if you'd like to learn more about Café con Libros, just head over to their website, cafeconlibrosbk.com. And you can order books online if you are out of the area. And I also want to note that they have listed a number of books for recommended reading to perhaps inspire conversation and dialogue about race relations and the African American experience. And that's it for this week's edition of the Working Woman Report. Thank you so much for joining us and being part of our community. Be sure to keep in touch online through our website and social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. We're always here to help and share what we learn and, of course, listen. My hope for you and your family is that you stay safe and healthy.